Good afternoon and welcome to Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbithe Mwema. It's Wednesday, it's the middle of the week. We want to keep you updated in terms of what has been happening on the NSE and are there some possible moves that you can look out for as we get to the tail end of the week. To start us off, as expected, I will be taking you through the key statistics that came out of the Nairobi Securities Exchange yesterday. We can take a look at that and see what was happening. Yesterday being Tuesday, we actually saw a jump, almost 53.9% to be exact, jump on equity turnover. What was happening there? Let's take a look at what was happening on the indices. Indices, slight movement downwards. You have the NSE All Share that was down 0.17% to 139.97 points. The NSE 20 Share Index also down slightly, 11 percentage points lower to close at 1,819.27 points. Let's take a look at the next chart, which details the equity turnover for the day. As I had mentioned, we did see a jump, 53.9 percentage point jump from 198 million in turnover to 305 million in turnover. The NSE is always a very interesting market. On Monday and on Friday, it's muted, nothing much happening unless there is an exceptional trade. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you sort of start seeing the tempo picking up. So it picked up yesterday. That's a 53.9% jump on turnover. Let's see what stocks were contributing to the 305 million that was traded yesterday. Movers by turnover. We have Safaricom as expected. It had a price of 13.15 and was able to trade 3.837 million shares. Multiply the price by the volume, you get the total turnover for the day at 115.7 million. That's the amount that was traded over the day for Safaricom. Centum was also one of the top traders as well at 18.05. That's the price it traded at, and the volume traded was 4.83 million shares, totaling to a turnover of 87.183 million. For Centum, the majority of the trades were dominated by the domestic market. That's the local demand and supply was dominant for this particular stock. However, for the case of Safaricom, it was dominated by foreign interest. Equity Group at 35. We've seen some upward correction. Last week it touched a low of 34.1 shillings per share. We've seen an upward correction and it's now trading at the 35 shilling mark. 1.1 million is the amount of volume that went through, with a total turnover of 38 million that was traded in this particular stock. BOC was also another one that traded. Actually, that is British America Tobacco. That's BAT that traded at 335.5 shillings per share with 77,000 shares traded over the day. Both sides of demand and supply were dominated by the foreigners, totaling to 25.9 million traded for that particular stock. KCB was number 5 at 38 shillings with a volume of 543,000 shares traded, totaling to a volume of 20.6 million. The blue chips, Safaricom, Equity, BAT and KCB Group were dominated by foreign interest on both sides of the trade, whereas for Centum, it was dominated by local interest on both sides of the trade. I think at 18.5, we have seen some of the investment banks actually come out and say that it makes sense to look at this particular stock at this price. And you know what happens when that happens? Yes, we will be talking about it on Friday to see, does it make sense to be buying it at 18.05, or will you get caught out in a value trap buying a stock that doesn't have the possibility of going upwards on price? Something we will be taking a deep dive on Friday. Let's take a look at who the movers were by volume. By volume, Centum again was up there, 4.8 million shares traded. Safaricom 3.8, Kengen 1.3. It's now trading at the 5 shilling mark. Equity Group 1.1 and KCB Group 543. Who are the top gainers? Who are the top losers for the day? Top gainers dominated by the small caps. Actually, it's all the small caps all the way down. We had Express up 7.91 percentage points to close the day at 4.5 shillings per share. Uchumi, 7.4 percentage points up. It closed the day at 0.29 shillings per share. Current General, similar trajectory. It was up 6.67 percentage points to close at 24 shillings per share. Total Kenya up 3.76. And the last but not least, Kenya Re was up 3.18 percentage points to close at 2.27. Previous day, we had seen it come off to the 2.20 mark, so we're seeing a bit of slight interest at this level. Last week, it had gone all the way to 2.4 shillings per share, and we saw a downward correction, so we're seeing a bit of retail interest picking it up at this level. Who are the top losers for the day on price? Yesterday being Tuesday, 13th of October. Umeme led the pack. It was down 5.61 percentage points to 7.06 shillings per share. Kabasit there has been oscillating up 1 week, down one the next week. This week it's actually lost 5.12 percentage points to close at 8.52 shillings per share. Longhorn was also part of the losing streak, down 4.23 percentage points to 4.53 shillings per share. TransCentury, something that we did discuss a while back as it awaits to get approval from its shareholders for its eventual delisting, was down 4.19 percentage points to close at 1.6 shillings per share. East African Cables as well, down 4 percentage points to close at 1.43 shillings per share. Now, nothing much is happening. It's October. The quarter has just turned, so it's muted activity on the NSE. We don't expect to see huge volumes going over the counters, but nonetheless, we see a trickling of corporate events or corporate news coming through from some of the smaller cap companies. I think the big news we're waiting for towards the end of this month is when the Tier 1 banks start to report third quarter numbers, a conversation that we will be taking a deep dive on as well tomorrow as we speak to one of the analysts to understand the possible outlook for the banks. Outside of that, however, we do have the smaller caps that have made some announcements, starting with Kenya Orchids, and they've made an announcement saying that they will not be able to meet their profitability as was envisaged. So this company came out yesterday and it said, based on the analysis of its financial statements and also going by the fact that COVID has had a negative impact, it's unable to meet its previous year profitability, and based on that, it's actually given a profit warning saying that it cannot meet at least 25% of the profitability that it reported in the last year. This particular circular is required as part of being a member of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, where if you expect a material drop in your full year earnings, you have to be able to communicate this in advance to the market so that investors are aware. That's the key thing that we have seen in terms of this particular profit warning. Expected, and also expected for a majority of the counters that are listed on the NSE, because they've all had to take an adverse stake when it comes to COVID-19. Two sectors stand out, however. That's technology, Safaricom, and the banking sector. These are the two sectors that have still been able to push revenues in spite of the COVID-19 impact on the overall economy. Our next chart looks at Kakuzi. Kakuzi has been in the limelight over the last 1.5 or so weeks, and it's coming off the ground of improper treatment of the majority of its staff who've actually gone to London and are filing court proceedings against the management at Kakuzi. We've had instances of Kakuzi staff members being beaten up to a pulp, or at least alleging to have been beaten up by a pulp by the managers of Kakuzi. We've also had allegations of rape, and these cases are possibly going to be heard in the United Kingdom. And based on this, we've actually seen a lot of uproar in terms of Kakuzi, and we were just looking at the price to see, have any of these allegations been confirmed? Not yet. Possible a court case could start, but based on the price performance, we haven't seen this reflect on the current share price of Kakuzi. Kakuzi is a very sticky stock, hardly any movement in terms of volume, not too much liquidity. And so what typically happens, in as much as there's material news that could affect the outlook of the company, it tends not to have any direct impact or immediate impact on price, given the stickiness of the shareholders, meaning not too much volume goes through the market. Now, you're all up to date in terms of what is happening in the market. It's a slow week, but we are trying to keep you abreast of anything that comes our way as and when it does. We take a break. When we come back, we have a very exciting guest sitting with us in our studio today. We want to talk about money market managers. What are the new laws that have been passed, and what do this possibly have to do with the returns that we expect from the money market managers? Over and above that, we also want to understand Citon as an asset manager. What kind of products do they have? What is the difference, if any, between one product over the other? And what has really been focused on in the limelight? In other words, we want to understand the Cyton asset management product from a perspective of a Cytoneer, somebody who works there, so that we can get a better perspective of what are we really looking at, what is the potential for some of the products, and what is the actual story. Because we have had different conversations. We've had guests in our studio give us their own perspectives. Today we wanted to hear a different perspective from Cyton as a company. We take a break. When we come back, we will be joined by Michael Obaga, who is a senior financial analyst with Cyton. I would like to hear your comments. I hope that you can be able to join this conversation and contribute as we go along. Our SMS line is right up there on the screen. That's 201-496. Alternatively, you could reach out to Metropole TV. That's on Twitter, on Facebook, or on Instagram. If that doesn't work for you, you can also reach out to me. My name is Mbithe Mwema. I am available on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Facebook. Let's unpack the conversation for money market managers, and let's try and understand the perspective in terms of some of the products that are offered by Cyton, more specifically trying to differentiate and understand the possibilities offered by the money market fund vis-a-vis the high yielding fund. We shall see you in a few, and I look forward to your engagement. I have my phone ready. I hope to hear from you soon. See you in a few.